Welcome to Rights and Remedies, the podcast where law, advocacy, and healing come together. I'm Allison Mahoney, your host and a lawyer dedicated to fighting for the rights of survivors of domestic and sexual abuse, as well as children harmed by the child welfare system. Each week, we delve into legal battles and court cases, share powerful stories that demand change, and spotlight the cutting-edge practices that are helping victims on their journey to healing. So, if you're ready to dive into the intersection of advocacy and healing, subscribe to Rights and Remedies today. New episodes are released weekly, and we can't wait to have you join the conversation. Together, we can make a difference. Welcome back to Rights and Remedies. Before we begin today's episode, please be advised that we'll be discussing technology-facilitated abuse, which may be triggering for some listeners. So if you need to take a break or skip the episode, please do so and prioritize your own well-being. Today's guest is Sophie Stephenson. She is the Director of Operations at the Madison Tech Clinic, which provides direct services to survivors of technology-facilitated abuse across Wisconsin. She's also a final year PhD candidate in computer sciences at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Her research focuses on understanding and combating modern forms of technology-facilitated abuse. Welcome, Sophie. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and thanks for the work that you and the clinic are doing. So, to start, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background and maybe what inspired you to do this type of work.
Yeah, when I started grad school, I knew that I wanted to do something that focused on the potential harms of technology because there's so much good that it can do, but there's also so much harm and abuse that can come from modern technologies that often we don't think about. So I really started looking for research projects. I took a class with my now advisor, Professor Rahul Chatterjee, who founded Madison Tech Clinic. And he was doing research on the intersection of intimate partner violence and tech abuse. And we just went from there. And I've been doing research on that now for almost 6 years and plan to continue doing it throughout my career.
Okay. That's incredible. And I think we're going to have a lot to chat about. So I guess one thing to start with is this is a new area. There's not a lot of research out there about these types of abuses. And so are you creating like groundbreaking, and is your clinic and school creating groundbreaking research in this space?
Yeah, I like to think so. It's an area that only really started getting looked at about 2018,
Mhm.
which is where my advisor started working on it during his grad school program. And in recent years, we've been doing a lot of work looking at modern technologies and how they're involved in intimate partner violence, but we've only just scratched the surface because we've only been looking at it since, again, 2018. So yeah, I think we're really forging a path forward, looking at how these clinics can potentially help people going forward even more.
Right. And when you say modern technology, what do you mean exactly by that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that can be many different things. I personally think of things like smart home devices, since these are really only just entering the scene, but can also create so much abuse.
Mhm.
And there's things coming on like AI. Oh my gosh, the harm that can be caused by AI is huge. And these things are just emerging, but the harms have already begun.
So I do want to talk more about what this actually looks like. But first, what is the Madison Tech Abuse Clinic? What do you guys do? Let's start there.
Yeah, absolutely. Madison Tech Clinic is a free volunteer-led initiative that was started by a professor, my advisor at UW-Madison in 2021. And it provides free consultations with survivors of intimate partner violence to discuss their technology concerns and try to help them investigate.
And so this isn't legal advice, it's technical advice.
Right. The consultants are tech experts who are also trained in trauma-informed care. So they're able to provide advice and assistance on technology in a trauma-informed way to these survivors.
Okay. A couple follow-up questions there. I feel like I hear a lot about therapists, lawyers, social workers being trauma informed, maybe forensic evaluators. but not necessarily people who are working in the technology space. Why did you guys think it was important to learn how to be trauma informed, and what did that training look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. We had kind of observed that the types of help available to survivors facing these tech abuses is either resources online, which can be difficult to read or often wrong, or people that are like at the Geek Squad or the Genius Bar who know a lot about tech, but might not know how to communicate it and don't understand the complexities of an abusive situation and the different safety implications involved.
Mhm.
So we wanted to provide a service that had both the technology expertise and the sensitivity to what survivors of abuse are facing and being able to engage with them with care and knowing what they might be going through. So
Right.
the training that we provide to our consultants is actually through a partner organization, Domestic Abuse Intervention Services, or DAYS, in Madison, Wisconsin. And we take the same training that their advocates take. So it's about 30 hours of training on all sorts of topics, including different abuse dynamics, the types of services that DAYS offers in addition to the tech clinic, and how to interact with survivors in a way that is with care and consideration.
Mm-hmm. So important. I'm so happy to hear that you all are doing that. And so the clinic is comprised of a professor, I assume, overseeing it, who you mentioned, and then students. Is that right?
Yes, that's how it originally started. And actually, now as we expand our consultant pool, we are recruiting people beyond students at UW as well. So anyone is welcome to volunteer for Madison Tech Clinic. And we've seen some folks start to come in who are especially tech experts who want to use their expertise in a way that helps people. So it's not just students anymore.
Okay. And can you give an example of like the type of issue that someone would walk into your doors with and what they'd be looking for help with?
The biggest thing that we hear is, my phone is hacked. What do I do? And the reason that they're concerned that their phone is hacked is that their abuser knows something that they shouldn't,
Mhm.
that maybe their location has been leaked and people are showing up where the person is. And so they want to understand how that's happening, if it's happening through technology, and how to turn it off.
Right. And I assume that if they're going, the normal routes to Apple or whatever, many times they're probably hearing that they're being crazy, imagining
Yeah,
it. Okay.
definitely.
Okay. So phone hacking. And so then are you all able to identify if that's happening and resolve the issue?
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing that we do is try to understand what their specific concerns are and narrow down what could be possible.
Mm.
Like we try to understand what type of information the abuser knows. Is it things that were said inside the house? Then maybe there's a listening device in the house. Is it things said over a specific messaging app?
Mhm.
And then through there, we do a lot of manual investigation. We look at apps, we look at the configuration of the phone and make sure that information is not being shared at those different channels. And we also use a tool that we have called ISTI, or IPv spyware discovery, that we can plug in the client's phone and we can scan the apps that are on the phone. And it tells us if there are any that we should look into more that might be suspicious.
Is the clinic free for people in Wisconsin?
Yes, it is.
And can you talk about how widespread this problem is? And since the clinic's inception, does it seem like the problem is becoming worse, or are we addressing it and curbing these types of abuses?
That's a good question. For prevalence, it is very hard to determine, unfortunately. We've done some previous studies that showed that people often don't seek formal support when they're facing tech abuse, often because they might not feel that it's as severe or would be looked at as severe as, say, physical or sexual abuse. So a lot of times it's not reported, but we do have a study that my colleague did that showed that upwards of 70% of college students on UW-Madison's campus had faced tech abuse.
Wow.
So I know it's a huge problem. And at least from the stats I've seen, it seems to be growing. We don't see any slowdown in it right now at our clinic. In fact, we've had an increase in consultation requests lately.
Mhm.
And I anticipate that's not going to change because policymakers and platforms are not making changes to these systems.
Right. And when you say tech abuse, can you describe the scope of that?
Yeah, it includes many different things. A lot of the a lot of them fall into two broad categories, which is spying and harassment.
Mm.
Spying via location trackers, looking at accounts and hacking into accounts using spyware apps. But there's also harassment, which can include things like impersonation, sending harassing messages and calls, posting about someone online, including posting non-consensual intimate imagery. And
Mhm.
with AI, now people are posting synthetic intimate imagery, which is an even
Right.
more widespread problem lately. And so there's many different kinds of things that fall under this umbrella.
Okay. I can't get over the 70% figure that you just cited. Do you think that it's worse with younger people? Like there are higher rates of these types of abuses with people who are teens or in their 20s than, say, people who are in their 40s or 50s?
I would say it's hard to say definitively. My intuition would be yes, it is more common with younger folks just because of the proliferation of technology among younger generations. And the more that a survivor uses technology, the more that an abuser uses technology, the more ways that the abuser can misuse technology, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't use technology, right? Like these technologies are very important to our lives, but when there is more technology that we're using, it does increase the risk.
Right. And in terms of what policymakers or the tech platforms could be doing to, maybe prevent this or better address it, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think the biggest issue that we see with platforms in particular is harassment and
Mhm.
the fact that someone can continue to harass another person. Even after they're blocked, they can make new accounts or they can spin up a new phone number that they can use to harass. And it just never stops. And with posts, especially with non-consensual intimate imagery, things can be taken down, but oftentimes reports from survivors for takedowns are ignored or they take forever.
Yeah.
Or there's websites that just don't comply because the whole point is for people to post non-consensual intimate imagery. So
Mhm.
I see a huge failure on platforms' part to prevent tech abuse.
Yeah. And an opportunity for
Yes.
you to do the right thing. Let's talk about the intersection of an intimate partner violence and tech abuse. Can you explain how how you are seeing tech abuse in relationships that have some type of intimate partner violence in them?
Yeah, so the people in this field often think of tech abuse as just a new vector for the abuse that's already happening in many intimate partner violence scenarios. As I've kind of hinted at, technology is just a new way for people to spy, a new way for people to harass. For example, intimate partner violence often includes some form of stalking. And before tech, people would have to manually follow someone in a car, or they would have to enlist others to let them know where that person was going. But now there's so many ways that they can use technology to do that, unfortunately. They could get a spy device and put it on the person's car that shares their location.
Oh
They
gosh.
could use cameras in the home to tell when they leave and come back. They could use spyware apps. So it's just more ways that abusers can take to conduct the abuse that they already were taking.
Right. I've given CLEs and have talked about what spyware cams actually look like. Can you describe that to people who are listening who maybe haven't seen a spyware cam? Because I think the natural thing is to think of like a traditional video camera that's quite large, but what does a spyware cam actually look like?
Yeah, and this is a concern that's really increasing, so I'm glad you're asking about this. There's two main types. One is actually more like a traditional camera, like a security camera that you would see in your home, because these are readily available. Abusers can purchase them, and maybe they already have them in the home, so they can misuse those to spy on a survivor. But there are also types that are meant to be hidden and meant to spy on someone without their knowledge, and these are available on Amazon. They're available all over the internet. They can be incredibly small. Like we've seen one that's about this big. I'm holding up about an inch with my fingers, and they can be disguised as well because these devices are meant to be hidden. So next one we've actually seen on Amazon was disguised as a Mountain Dew bottle.
Oh
They
my
can
gosh.
really look like anything, and that is what makes it hard to find them.
Okay. And so how do people who are being victimized in this way end up, from what you're saying, end up finding out that there's a spyware cam in their home?
This is very tough. Sometimes they will see a little blinking light
Hmm.
and say, I don't know what that is. And then they go look manually. But
Hmm.
a lot of times, it's not actually the camera that makes itself known. It's the fact that the abuser says something that indicates that they are watching or listening in the home. And with that knowledge, a survivor will go and manually look around their home. So, unfortunately, if the abuser doesn't say anything that indicates that they're listening, it might be impossible to know that there's a device in the home.
That's so scary because
Yeah.
we should be able to feel safe in our homes. And if you feel like you're being watched and you're already in an abusive relationship, um, I could see where that would cause a lot of distress and harm to someone's emotional well-being. So you had previously mentioned to me that the Madison Tech Clinic also has some special projects that you're working on. Can you talk about those, please?
Yeah, a lot of us are grad students, as you mentioned, so we're
Mhm.
also doing research that is related to the clinic. And some that we're working on right now are related to the legal side of tech abuse. We're looking at expanding the clinic to Indigenous nations in Wisconsin and creating culturally attuned tech clinics in collaboration with them.
Mhm.
So there's several different projects. I'm happy to expand further on any of them.
Let's start with because I'm a lawyer and selfishly want to know, tell me about how you are working with the legal industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've we've gotten a lot of requests in the clinic for help documenting evidence of tech abuse.
Mhm.
And up till about a year ago, we really had no idea how to approach those requests because we're not lawyers, none of us are, and we didn't know what would make for good evidence in legal proceedings, what the statutes were that we would be helping out with, what the requirements are for admittance, right? So
Yeah.
we wanted to look into it a bit more because this is something that people ask about all the time. And when we looked into the guidance out there right now, it basically just says take a screenshot of everything. And a lot of times that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we were trying to figure out how we can best support survivors in their evidence collection. The first thing we did was we interviewed 19 legal support providers across the state and tried to understand what people are currently using as evidence of tech abuse in legal proceedings. And I should say, when I talk about legal proceedings, it's typically restraining orders, divorce proceedings, and custody and placement,
Okay.
and then criminal charges for stalking or harassment or various other statutes.
Okay. So you're working with prosecutors and with family law attorneys, that sort of thing. Okay.
Right, right. A variety of different legal experts.
Mhm.
And from what we learned in that study, now we're developing a procedure in our clinic that we can use to document what we find in a way that ideally will be able to be used in court.
Mhm.
And we're actually very close to being able to start using that procedure in practice. I'm hoping in August we'll be able to start doing that. And hopefully it will help people get legal recourse.
Is the expectation that someone from your clinic would have to testify then potentially as an expert and explain how the evidence was gathered?
Yeah, we've been told that we'll probably need to do that. Although I know for restraining orders, of course, there's about a 30-minute window that you can take for the actual injunction, yeah, or for the case. So we don't know if we'll need to come in, but we are prepared to if needed.
Okay. And are you working with, well, let me back up. Are there other clinics in the US that are doing this type of work? It seems like every state should have what your team is doing. I imagine that's not the case. Um, but are there other clinics? And if so, are you all collaborating so that there's something that's more standardized from state to state?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. This is not the first tech clinic. The first tech clinic is, and one of the only three in the country, is the Clinic to End Tech Abuse in New York City. So I want to give them a huge shout out because that's where this whole idea came from, and why the tech clinic exists in Madison now. So there's the one in New York City, CETA, there's the one in Madison, and then there's one called TECC, the Technology Enabled Coercive Control Clinic. Um, and that's it. Those are the only three.
And where's the
So
third
we
one?
are working. Oh, I'm sorry, it's in Seattle.
In Seattle. Okay. That would make
Yep.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate that, we've only just started. We were only able to cover these few states, but it is a growing initiative. I'm planning on starting a tech clinic wherever I go for my next position after graduation. And yes, especially people at CETA, the original tech clinic, are working to create toolkits for people who want to start their own tech clinics
Okay.
and to facilitate growth going forward. So it's something that will continue to expand as we go on.
Okay. Yeah, I would imagine that demand is only going to increase, especially as technology continues to evolve and as more people become aware of organizations like yours where they can get support. Um, all right. And so let's shift and talk about the other project that involves, I believe, Indigenous women.
Yes, yeah. And I should shout out my colleague Naman Gupta, who is leading this project. We've noticed that technology is involved in many types of abuse, right? That's what we've been talking about. But we wanted to focus on how technology impacts a specific movement called the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Crisis, which is the fact that Indigenous women go missing and are murdered at astonishingly high rates compared to other demographic groups. It is a real, real problem. And so, there's different types of abuse involved in MMIW, which is how we refer to this crisis. And intimate partner violence plays a role, sex trafficking plays a role, and technology we know is involved in those types of abuse. So we wanted to understand better how technology contributes to the MMIW crisis and also how it helps to combat the crisis. We've seen that anecdotally, there are Facebook groups that people use to find missing relatives and to collaborate with their communities. So we kind of wanted to look at, okay, what should technologists know and how can we make a difference?
Hmm.
So we've done a large scale survey of content online, gathering hundreds of thousands of websites and trying to analyze the different harms that technology has caused toward the MMIW crisis, but also the ways that it's contributed to advocacy and to combating the crisis
Hmm.
and providing suggestions for technologists in what they should do to raise awareness of the crisis. And we're
Okay.
working on writing up a paper about this for submission soon.
How long have you been has this project existed? Is it
I think
brand new?
it's brand new. I think we've been working on it for almost a year now.
Okay. Okay. And are you planning on speaking to people within that community, or is all the research done online?
Yes, that's a good question. We started online so as to reduce the burden on folks who are in these communities. We're trying not to be extractive as much as possible.
Mhm.
So we started by using online resources, but we are planning to soon collaborate with folks in these communities, interview them about their use of technology, especially for advocacy,
Mhm.
and better understand how we can support that advocacy work.
And when the research paper is published, where will it be? Or is it too soon to say?
To be continued. It will be posted on my website and on my colleague's website as well.
Okay, okay. Wonderful. Well, you are doing so much important work. Thank you. And thank you to the clinic also for everything that you guys are doing. If people are interested in learning more, or if maybe they are someone who's being victimized by technology and lives in Wisconsin, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can always look at our website, techclinic.cs.wisc.edu, which I think is also going to be linked in the show notes
Yeah,
probably.
it will.
Awesome. And you can always email us also at techclinic.madison@gmail.com. We will set you up with a victim service provider if you'd like to receive services, and then we can make a consultation with you.
Okay, perfect. Well, Sophie, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing all of this information and for the work that you and the rest of the clinic are doing. It's greatly appreciated and it's important. And thank you to everyone who listened today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you for joining us on Rights and Remedies. I hope today's episode gave you valuable insights into the legal issues facing victims and the pathways to healing. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Whether you're a survivor, an advocate, or someone looking to learn more, we're here to support and empower you. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others. You can also follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at ALM Law LLC for updates, resources, and more. Until next time, take care and remember that together we can make a difference.